On paper, Omega Strike is a Metroidvania, almost as if they read the definition on Wikipedia and made sure the game followed exactly what it said. I know there's an audience for older style games, and I appreciate that, but I think a few improvements on the genre can go a long way. For the uninitiated, Omega Strike is a two-dimensional platformer with a lot of connected rooms. The main goal is to defeat an evil boss. To get there, you'll need to collect items and do a lot of backtracking. It's the signature of the style. Interesting enough, the game allows you to switch between 3 different characters at a time. The standard soldier, Sarge, doesn't do anything special at the start. The beefier guy, Bear, can move heavy blocks, and the ninja, Dex, can double jump. As you defeat bosses and unlock new abilities, more of the map is available to explore that was inaccessible before. The new element Omega Strike brings to the table is the character switching. It's pretty cool and happens immediately, which can lead to some skillful play. The levels are designed so they are forced to switch back and forth, not only because some areas require a double jump, but each has a different weapon. Bear has a grenade launcher which can be used up high to stay safe. It keeps all the characters relevant. If this was not the case, Dex, the double jumper, would be the most useful for the entire time. Who doesn't want more control? Eventually, all the characters get abilities that are required to progress. Sarge gets an awesome pipe hanging ability. The problem is that early on, Dr. Omega, the evil bad guy, takes Bear and Dex, so you're forced to play as Sarge for a long time. If you're going to introduce a cool new element to the genre, why take it away? I'm talking right at the beginning. You're just getting used to the character swap and boom, it's gone. It's always odd to empower the player only to take it away. It's not a good feeling. I was worried I wasn't going to get my crew back, but that's the next task anyway, so you do. When you've set the genre for your game so specifically as Metroidvania, you can fall into the same pitfalls as other games in the genre. It can work in your favor though, especially for fans. I by no means am an avid player, so keep that in mind, but Omega Strike has what I consider very basic shooting and platforming. Nothing feels bad about it, it's just clinical. If I needed to explain what a platformer was, this could be an almost educational experience. Everything's exactly the way it should be, and nothing more. There's no excitement controlling the characters. After 100 times jumping, shooting, and platforming, I was getting kind of bored. The maps are big too, so you'll be traversing a lot of screens, especially if you need to check every room. After a while, I was just trying to get through the rooms as fast as possible, without killing everything. Most times there isn't a quick shortcut back either. It would have been a lot better if after defeating the boss in the area, it looped you all the way back to the start. Instead, I had to work my way back through the majority of the level. I don't know if this was done to pad the game with gameplay, but it just ends up being a chore. I don't mind experiencing a new level and opening new rooms. It just gets worse as more and more backtracking is required later in the game. Even though I was getting bored with the mechanics, I did enjoy the design and style of the game. You have to admit, the pixel art is pretty good. The music is also done pretty well, and there's a different track for each map of the game. Each area is fairly distinct, and the upgraded enemies have a different color palette. Even late in the game, new enemy types are introduced. Oh, speaking of late in the game, it can get difficult as Omega Strike puts so many enemies on the screen, combined with even more jumping. When starting off, it's too easy. I thought I made a mistake when selecting normal difficulty. Around 60% into the game, I noticed an uptick in the number of enemies and actually died a few times. There are plenty of save points throughout if you're checking all the rooms. You could potentially miss one if you're blitzing the boss though. For a more skilled player, I don't think hard mode is going to make it more difficult. Sure, enemies are harder to kill, but you can still just jump over them to progress. You'll end up speed running, and with a checkpoint before each boss that restores your health, there's no reason not to. The bosses are done well and are my favorite part of the game. Their design is really cool, and the mechanics it takes to beat them is distinct each time. They have a general pattern and phases, but it's not so clean cut. What I mean is that it's a bit subtle since nothing changes in the fight. Their arm doesn't blow up, they don't turn bright flashing red, bloop 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 bloop. Nothing so dramatic. It's more about keeping the player on their toes. The bosses have a set of abilities that they can use at random. Same as with the rest of the game though, early on, the bosses are pretty easy. Nothing new is introduced, and I wish the new abilities acquired in the game were used. I guess that might limit which hero you use in the battle, but then the double jump is overpowered and the only option. There are so many bosses, 12 to be exact, it would have been fine though. Look, for example, how about this? Sarge gets a roll. He's the only one that can get into tight spaces. It would have been a great way to switch sides of the screen, even like a short gap in the middle to roll under. What if a rocket was taking off on one side of the screen and you needed to dodge a huge fireball? Cutting the screen in half could have made a boss battle very difficult and intense. That's like exactly what this game needs. But maybe that's why it wasn't used, because the character switching in the boss battle would have cranked up the difficulty too much. It would have given the bosses a little something extra though. Yet, they were something to look forward to for their silly banter and to escape the platforming. I enjoyed Omega Strike, but it was a struggle to finish. I forced myself to get to the final boss. If you're a bigger fan of Metroidvanias, then I think this will satisfy. It leans towards being more faithful to the genre than I would have preferred, but it's a solid game. A lot of effort went into polishing the game, and it really shows. I'm excited to see what the developer, Wobblyware, can accomplish in their next game. I hope they can let their imaginations run wild. Hey, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, check out my Robot Named Fight review. It's a Metroidvania as well that's a little less faithful to the genre, but I still found it to be an incredible game. I'm sure it's linked somewhere on the screen here. So thanks for that. Please subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I really appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed this review. Thanks.